Sofia knew she had to warn Kwame about Malik and his men, but she couldn't do it openly. She decided to take a risk and send him a coded message. That evening, she logged onto their favorite online game and sent him a private message. "Kwame, it's Sofia. We need to talk. Meet me at the park at midnight. It's urgent." She hoped he would understand the urgency of her message and show up. The hours passed slowly as she waited for midnight to arrive. When the time finally came, she slipped out of her house and headed to the park. Kwame was already there, his expression a mix of relief and worry when he saw her. "Sofia, what's going on? Why the secrecy?" Sofia took a deep breath and quickly explained what had happened with Malik and his men. Kwame's face grew pale as he listened, his jaw tightening. "They found me," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I could escape them, but they are relentless." Sofia placed a hand on his arm, her voice urgent. "Kwame, we need a plan. They are threatening me and my friends. We have to do something." Kwame nodded, his mind racing. "I have a friend who might be able to help. He has connections and might know how to get Malik off our backs." Sofia felt a glimmer of hope. "Do you trust him?" Kwame hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I do. He owes me a favor. We'll go see him first thing in the morning." Sofia nodded, relief washing over her. "Okay. But we need to be careful. Malik's men are watching me." Kwame gave her a reassuring smile. "We'll figure this out, Sofia. I promise." The next morning, Sofia and Kwame set out to meet Kwame's friend. They took a circuitous route to avoid being followed, finally arriving at a small, nondescript building on the outskirts of town. Kwame knocked on the door, and a moment later, a tall man with a serious expression opened it. "Kwame, it's been a while," he said, giving Kwame a brief hug. "It's good to see you, Daniel," Kwame replied. "We need your help." Daniel ushered them inside and listened as Kwame explained the situation. His expression grew serious as he took it all in. "Malik is bad news. If he's after you, you're in deep trouble." "We know," Sofia said, her voice filled with anxiety. "But we don't know what to do. Can you help us?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll make some calls and see what I can do. In the meantime, you two need to lay low. Malik's men will be watching for any sign of you." Kwame and Sofia exchanged worried glances but agreed. They couldn't afford to take any risks. Daniel set them up in a safe house, a small apartment in a quiet part of town. As they settled in, Sofia couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She hoped Daniel could come through for them, but the uncertainty was gnawing at her. Days turned into weeks as Sofia and Kwame lay low in the safe house. Daniel kept them updated on his progress, but there was no word on Malik or his men. The tension was palpable as they waited for news. One evening, as Sofia was preparing dinner, there was a knock on the door. She and Kwame exchanged worried glances, their hearts racing. Kwame approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. "It's Daniel," he said, relief evident in his voice. He opened the door, and Daniel stepped inside, his expression serious. "We have a problem," Daniel said without preamble. "Malik's men have been asking around, getting closer to finding you. We need to move you to a safer location." Sofia's heart sank. "How much time do we have?" "Not much," Daniel replied. "We need to leave tonight." Kwame nodded, already gathering their things. "Where are we going?" Daniel hesitated for a moment before speaking. "There's a place outside the city, a small village. It's remote, and Malik's men won't think to look there. But it's not without risks." Sofia felt a pang of fear. "What kind of risks?" Daniel looked at them both, his expression grim. The village has its own set of problems. It's controlled by a local gang, and they don't take kindly to outsiders. But it's our best shot at staying hidden. Sofia and Kwame exchanged a glance, knowing they didn't have much choice. "We'll take it," Kwame said, determination in his voice. The journey to the village was long and arduous, filled with tension as Daniel drove through winding roads and dense forest. The night seemed endless, and Sofia couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. She kept glancing at Kwame, who was equally tense but determined. Finally, they arrived at the village, a cluster of houses nestled in the heart of the forest. It was quiet, almost eerily so, and Sofia felt a shiver run down her spine. Daniel led them to a small, dilapidated house at the edge of the village. "This is where you'll stay," Daniel said, his voice low. "Keep a low profile, and don't attract attention. I'll check in on you when I can." Sofia and Kwame nodded, grateful for Daniel's help but anxious about their new surroundings. They settled into the house, trying to make the best of their situation. The days passed slowly, filled with a constant undercurrent of fear and uncertainty. One evening, as they were preparing for bed, there was a loud knock on the door. Sofia's heart leapt into her throat, and she exchanged a worried glance with Kwame. He motioned for her to stay quiet as he approached the door. "Who is it?" Kwame called out, his voice steady. A deep, rough voice replied, "Open the door. We need to talk." Kwame hesitated for a moment before opening the door slightly. A large, imposing man stood on the other side, flanked by two others. They looked dangerous, and Sofia felt her pulse quicken. "What do you want?" Kwame asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The man stepped forward, pushing the door open. "We know you're hiding here. You need to pay for our protection, or there will be consequences." Kwame frowned, his mind racing. "We don't have much. We are just trying to stay out of trouble." The man's eyes narrowed. "Everyone pays. If you don't, you'll find trouble right here." Sofia stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We'll find a way to pay. Please, just give us some time." The man studied her for a moment before nodding. "You have 1 week. If you don't pay by then, you'll regret it." With that, the men turned and left, leaving Sofia and Kwame shaken and worried. They knew they had to find a way to gather the money, but they had no idea where to start. The days passed in a blur as Sofia and Kwame tried to figure out how to gather the money. They knew they couldn't ask Daniel for help, he had already done so much for them. They had to find a way on their own. One afternoon, as Sofia was walking through the village, she overheard a conversation that piqued her interest. A group of villagers were talking about a local gambling den that operated in secret. It was dangerous, but it was also a place where they could potentially make a lot of money quickly. Sofia returned to the house and told Kwame about what she had heard. "It's risky, but it might be our only option," she said, her voice filled with determination. Kwame frowned, worry etched on his face. "Gambling is dangerous. We could lose everything." "I know," Sofia replied. "But we don't have any other choice. We need the money, and this might be our only shot." Kwame sighed, knowing she was right. "Okay. We'll do it. But we have to be careful." That evening, they made their way to the gambling den, a small, hidden building on the outskirts of the village. The atmosphere inside was tense, filled with smoke and the sound of murmured conversations. Sofia and Kwame exchanged nervous glances before stepping inside. They sat down at a table, and a man with a shrewd look in his eyes approached them. "Newcomers, huh? What brings you here?" Sofia took a deep breath and replied, "We need to make some money. We are willing to take the risk." The man studied them for a moment before nodding. "All right. But remember, this place isn't for the faint of heart. You win big, or you lose big. There's no in between." Sofia and Kwame nodded, understanding the stakes. They began to play, their nerves on edge as they placed their bets. The game was intense, and Sofia felt her heart pounding in her chest as the night wore on. Hours passed, and Sofia and Kwame found themselves on a roller coaster of emotions. They won some rounds and lost others, the tension building with each passing moment. As the night drew to a close, they were on the verge of losing everything they had won. Sofia looked at Kwame, her eyes filled with determination. "We can't give up. We need this money." Kwame nodded, his jaw set. "One more round. We go all in." They placed their final bet, their hearts racing as the game unfolded. The tension in the room was palpable, and Sofia felt like she could hardly breathe. The final moments seemed to stretch on forever. Finally, the game ended, and Sofia and Kwame stared in disbelief at the pile of money in front of them. They had won. The relief was overwhelming, and Sofia felt tears of joy welling up in her eyes. They quickly gathered their winnings and left the gambling den, their hearts still pounding with excitement and relief. They had done it. They had the money they needed to pay off the gang and secure their safety, at least for now. The next day, Sofia and Kwame met with the gang leader to hand over the money. He counted it carefully before nodding. "You've done well. You're safe for now." Sofia and Kwame breathed a sigh of relief, but their respite was short-lived. That evening, as they were celebrating their victory, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was Daniel. His expression was grave as he stepped inside. "We have a problem. Malik's men have found out where you are. They are on their way here." Sofia felt a wave of panic wash over her. "What do we do?" Daniel shook his head. "We need to leave. Now." As they hurried to gather their things, Sofia couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She glanced at Daniel, a sense of unease growing within her. "How did they find us so quickly?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes avoiding hers. "I don't know. They have their ways." Sofia's suspicion grew. "Daniel, did you?" Before she could finish her sentence, the door burst open, and Malik's men stormed in. Sofia's heart sank as she realized they had been betrayed. Daniel had led them right to Malik's men. Kwame tried to fight them off, but they quickly overpowered him. Sofia was grabbed and forced to the ground, her mind racing with fear and confusion. Malik stepped forward, a triumphant smile on his face. "You didn't think you could hide from me forever, did you?" Sofia glared at him, anger and betrayal burning in her eyes. "Why, Daniel? Why did you do this?" Daniel's expression was filled with regret. "I didn't have a choice. Malik has my family. I had to do what he said." Sofia felt a pound of sympathy for Daniel, but her anger and fear were overwhelming. They had been so close to escaping, and now everything was falling apart. Malik's men tied up Sofia and Kwame, leaving them helpless and afraid. Malik paced in front of them, a sinister smile on his face. "You thought you could escape me, but you were wrong. Now, you're going to pay for your defiance." Sofia's mind raced as she tried to think of a way out. She knew they couldn't give up, not after everything they had been through. She glanced at Kwame, who nodded subtly, signaling that he was ready to fight back. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside, and the sound of raised voices filled the air. Malik's men turned towards the door, their attention momentarily diverted. Sofia saw her chance and lunged at the nearest man, catching him off guard. Kwame followed suit, and chaos erupted as they fought their captors. The villagers, alerted by the commotion, rushed to their aid, overwhelming Malik's men with sheer numbers. Malik tried to escape, but Sofia and Kwame cornered him, their eyes filled with determination. "It's over, Malik," Sofia said, her voice steady. "You're not going to hurt anyone else." Malik's face twisted in rage. You think you've won? This isn't over. Before he could make another move, the villagers restrained him, ensuring he couldn't escape. Sofia and Kwame exchanged a relieved glance, knowing they had finally won their freedom. With Malik and his men defeated, Sofia and Kwame were finally free to start anew. The villagers, grateful for their bravery, offered them a place to stay and helped them rebuild their lives. Sofia and Kwame accepted, feeling a sense of peace and belonging they had never experienced before. They knew their journey wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, they felt hopeful about the future. As they settled into their new lives, they couldn't help but reflect on everything they had been through. The twists and turns, the betrayals and revelations, had tested. Share, comment and subscribe.